Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today I have special guest Liz Beebe from Dustbowl Revival on the show. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dustbowl Revival originally formed back in 2007 after Zach posted an ad in Craigslist. How has the band evolved over the years to where you guys are at now?
Well, I can really only speak to the amount of time that I've been in the band, which has been about the past 5.5 years. But even since then, we've grown so much. When I first joined back in 2013, we were touring, but not as extensively as we are now. And we've really just been able to have the pleasure of playing so many more festivals. And, we've gone to Europe at least 3 times now, and it's just been such a pleasure for us to be able to travel as much as we do and meet fans all over the world.
Now, for you, Liz, how did you get into music, and who are some of your influences growing up, as well as, who are some people that, influence you currently?
I started singing, as a child, so that's just something I've always done. I actually went to school for theater, so I pursued performance in a way more than I pursued music specifically. Okay. And that was great. It was a wonderful foundation to have. And when I joined Dustbowl, I really had such a pleasure being able to work with these guys who all are so amazing at playing their instruments. And Zach is such a wonderful songwriter. So being able to come from sort of a theater background and just sort of like a choir in school music background, so that having a pretty developed ear was a great foundation to then come into this band to be one of the 2 lead singers. And I would say I grew up listening to a lot of folk music, Sean Colvin, Dar Williams, Joni Mitchell, that sort of stuff. And I listened to a lot of pop music as well. I definitely had sort of the average teenage relationship with the radio and my tape deck and making mixtapes. So I have sort of a healthy mix there between knowing the hits and also still being really connected to sort of the storytelling and the emotional connection of a lot of folk music. More recently, I would say I've been listening to a lot of, there's an artist local to Los Angeles, and the band is called The Bird and the Bee, and it's one half of the band is Inara George, and the other half of the band is Greg Kirsten. And Greg actually has been really busy producing for the past long while. I think he did Adele's last album that won a Grammy.
Oh, wow.
He worked with Sia. He's working with amazing people, but I love the stuff that he writes with Inara and she sings. It's just really poppy, but still has that sort of light energy that folk / singer-songwriter music has. Yeah. But it has sort of the fun excitement of pop music, so that's been cool.
Okay. Now, when working on like a new song, what is the creative process like for you?
I guess I could speak to it sort of from the perspective of the band. Usually what the band does is either Zach or I will come to the band with a song that is sort of bones. There's like a basic song structure and there's lyrics and likely a melody, and then we'll take it into the group and the band will sort of flesh it out, and maybe we'll break it down, maybe we'll change the groove, maybe we'll change what key it's in, the tempo, the sort of energy of it, and then we'll sort of build it back up from there.
Okay.
I know Zach does a lot of writing at home when he's alone, and I do the same. I usually don't write lyrics or sort of song ideas in a group of people. That's something that I usually do on my own at home, or whenever sort of inspiration strikes. I'm lucky if I have my phone nearby and I can just sort of do a quick voice memo to attend to it later.
Okay. Now, and as far as your guys' last album or your latest album, saw you guys working with Ted Hutt. What was it like working with him, and what would you say you took away from that experience?
I loved working with Ted. I think one of the things that I took away from it is that it's really helpful because we are such a large group and we do want to take advantage of the skill and talent that everybody in Dustbowl brings to the table. It is really helpful and was really helpful to have Ted around for that process, to sort of hear all 8 ideas and then be the filter or the funnel to help make sure that we could sort of hear one another, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people involved. And I think he also really was able to sort of listen to what we were bringing to the table and pick out what was working very well, so that when we brought, you know, about 20, 25 songs to him as options for this album, he was able to pretty immediately be like, great, give me more of this. What's happening with this song? So it was cool. He was a wonderful person to work with. He gave us a lot of his time, which is not common to have with a producer. He was there with us in the rehearsal studio prior to when we were actually in the recording studio. So we were super grateful for that.
And now, you know, Liz, you also released your own solo project called Hush Now, Lullabies for Sleepy People. Can you talk about just how that, you know, that project came about? And do you have any plans for any other solo projects in like the near future?
Yeah, that was a really fun project that I put together this year. I think just for myself as someone who didn't grow up or in my professional career sort of plan to be where I am now, I've just been really fortunate and sort of taken opportunities as they have come and really ran with them and thrown myself into them like I have with Dustbowl. It was important to me to set out to do a project that I had ownership of and was dependent on myself. Probably partially for the exercise of proving that I could do it without, you know, the guys in the band sort of backing me up. And partially because in Dustbowl, I have this amazing opportunity to sort of sing these really impassioned songs that require a lot of power behind them.
Yep.
And I also, like I mentioned earlier with those artists that I have always been inspired by, I also like to sing softly, you know. So it was an opportunity to sort of let out that other side of myself, that other performer that's inside me that can do the nuance, do the quiet notes, do the softer stories. And my brother also had a daughter last year who's now, I think, 1.5. So part of it, too, is making something that could be a part of my friends and my family's lives. When I'm not around, you know, I'm on the road. So making the Lullaby album was sort of a way to be present for them.
Now, and do you have any, you know, plans to do anything else like in the future, or is it that as of right now, there's nothing?
Yeah, I probably have like about half of an album written right now. That's just original stuff that I'm doing, and sort of waiting to see what's going to happen with that. I'm not pursuing it too intensely at the moment because Dustbowl is also in the middle of writing our next album.
Oh,
but yeah, there's some stuff in the works, so I'd tell people to stay tuned for sure.
All right, great. Well, you know, kind of, you know, going back into a little bit earlier, just that, you know, you guys are known for your incredible live performances. What goes into just like, you know, preparing for each show?
I would say for myself, I definitely make sure that I get to have dinner before we play a show. And I try to make sure that I have a bunch of water ready. And then likely I'll do a couple of vocal warm-ups just to make sure that I've gone from the resting mode of us sitting in the van for probably 3 or 4 hours that day, getting to the town we're in, and up on stage where I have to project for, you know, the entire audience. So lots of just self-care, you know, centering, chilling, drinking water, eating dinner, and then warming up, really. It's a quick process. We don't have a lot of downtime.
And you guys, yeah, you just came back from tour of Denmark. You know, what was that like, and what are some places you would love to go that you haven't yet?
Oh, yeah. That was actually really great because we've played Tønnefest in Denmark twice before, and this was our first time going to Denmark and not being at that festival and playing just around the country. It was really fun, and it was lovely to see some of those fans out in either their hometown or a town nearby where they live. I would love for Dustbowl to be able to play Australia. I've never been there, so it's always helpful if I can use the band as a way to travel a place in the world I've never been before.
Yeah, there you go.
And don't have immediate vacation plans.
And now, you know, kind of tying into that, you know, you're obviously an extremely busy person between, touring with, Dustbowl Revival, working on music with them. You just put out a solo project. What does a typical day in the life of Liz Beebe look like?
Do you want a typical day at home or a typical day on the road?
I guess you can go into a little bit of both.
I guess technically a typical day would be on the road, since we're usually on the road more than we're home. A typical day would be waking up in my hotel room, likely between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., depending on how late we played the night before and whether or not we had to drive afterwards. And then I usually make a coffee in my hotel room, and I travel with a lot of food stuff on my own to give myself that like feeling of home, that comfort routine. Yep. So I'll make myself a coffee and put all my normal things in it. And then I'll usually journal in the morning before we hit the road again. And then the band we'll all pack up our stuff and get in the van. We usually stop for breakfast. And while the guys are eating, I usually take a walk. And then we drive, let's say, 2 to 5 hours, depending on where we are in the country, to the place we're about to play. We load our instruments in to get ready for sound check, and while the sound people are setting up the stage, I probably take another walk around the town where we are now visiting to sort of get a lay of the land and see where people live and what they do and what is that town like. And then we go back, we do sound check, we eat dinner, we warm up, we play the show, and then we load back into the van and drive to the hotel and do it all again the next day.
Do it all again. All right. Now, with someone who's unfamiliar with Dustbowl Revival, you have one song to introduce them to you guys. What would that song be and why? One
song to introduce, I would probably say Honey, I Love You is a really good song to introduce people to us, because it has sort of the love song duet appeal to it, which I think is a really lovely part of our performance between Zach and I singing. It also has a reprise at the end that's a little bit of a dance party, so you sort of get the best of both worlds with that song.
Okay, awesome. Now, what is next for yourself and the rest of Dustbowl Revival, and do you have anything that you want to say to the fans out there?
What's next for Dustbowl is that we're super excited to come back to New England. We'll be playing both at the State Theater on the 30th, and we're doing New Year's Eve in Burlington, Vermont. So the band is excited because they've been there before, and we do love Lake Street, and it'll be awesome to see them. And I'm excited because that's where my friends and family are, so I always get to come home and hang out and see people that I don't get to see. And then we'll be working on our new album this coming year, which hopefully we can release in the summer, but we don't really have the production schedule quite nailed down yet. And then for myself, I'm going to also keep working on my own stuff and hopefully set up my own schedule to release something either next year or the following year as well. So just lots of good stuff coming out.
All right, great to hear. Well, I will actually, like I said, I will be checking out that show with Lake Street Dive up in Portland. So I'll see you guys there. For
Great.
Everyone else, make sure you go pick up their latest album, which you can get a number of different places, whether it be iTunes, the band's website. And I just want to thank you, Liz, for taking the time out of your schedule to do this interview. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you. I'll see you in January.
See you soon.
Or, December 30th. Exactly. Almost January.
See you soon, Liz. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Liz Beebe from Dustbowl Revival, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.